That can't be Grace. She couldn't have children. How did she come with twins and also pregnant when she was infertile? Mrs. Nwachukwu's whisper silenced the entire baby shower. Everyone turned to stare at the heavily pregnant woman in the elegant Ankara dress. Two toddlers holding her hands. Emeka's champagne glass shattered on the ground. "Hello, Ma. Yes, it's me. And these are my children, Zara, Malik, and twins on the way." Grace Okafor thought she had finally found her happily ever after. At 24 years old, sitting in that bustling restaurant in Victoria Island, Lagos, she watched the man across from her talk about his dreams with such passion that she felt her heart swell with hope. "I want at least 3 children, Emeka Nwachukwu said, his dark eyes shining with enthusiasm. "A house in Lekki with a big compound where they can play. I want to hear their laughter filling our home." Grace smiled, stirring her Chapman with the tiny red straw. "That sounds beautiful. I've always wanted a big family too." Emeka reached across the table, his hand warm as it covered hers. "You're exactly what I've been praying for, Grace. A woman who understands what family means." They had met 6 months earlier at a friend's wedding reception. Emeka was a banker with Zenith Bank, ambitious and well-spoken, the kind of man Grace's mother had been praying she'd find. Within a year, he proposed at the Lekki Conservation Centre, getting down on one knee near the canopy walkway as other visitors cheered. Their wedding in December 2017 was everything Grace had dreamed of. The ceremony took place at Cathedral Church of Christ in Lagos, followed by a lavish reception at Echo Hotel. Grace wore a stunning white gown, while Emeka looked regal in his navy blue agbada. "My son has chosen well," Emeka's mother, Mrs. Nwachukwu, told everyone at the reception. "Grace will give us many grandchildren to carry on our family name." The words made Grace glow with pride. She had found a good man from a good family, and together they would build something beautiful. The first year of marriage was sweet. Emeka and Grace moved into a 3-bedroom flat in Ikeja, and Emeka would walk past the empty second bedroom saying, "Soon our baby will sleep here." But after 6 months of trying with no pregnancy, Grace noticed subtle changes in her husband's behavior. "Maybe you should drink more Zobo," Emeka suggested one evening. "My mother said it helps with fertility." Grace laughed it off, thinking he was just anxious for their first child. But by their second year of marriage, Emeka's suggestions had turned into accusations. "Every other woman in my family gets pregnant quickly," he said one night after Grace's period arrived again. "My sister had 3 children in 4 years. Why is it different with you?" The words cut deep. "Emeka, these things take time sometimes. We should both go see a doctor." "Why should I see a doctor?" "There's nothing wrong with me. You're the one who can't get pregnant." Grace felt her eyes sting with tears. "That's not fair." "We don't know what's happening yet. What I know is that my mother is asking questions. My aunties are asking questions. Everyone wants to know why my wife isn't pregnant yet, and I don't have an answer." The pressure from Emeka's family intensified. During Sunday family gatherings at the Nwachukwu family house in Surulere, his mother would make pointed comments. "Our neighbor's daughter just had her second child, and she got married after you," Mrs. Nwachukwu would say, looking directly at Grace. "Is everything okay with you?" Grace would smile politely, dying inside. "We're in God's hands, Ma." "God's hands, yes, but have you been to see a doctor? Sometimes these things need medical intervention." Grace finally made an appointment at Nordica Fertility Center in Ikoyi. Dr. Adeyemi, a warm woman in her 50s, ran comprehensive tests over several weeks. "Mrs. Nwachukwu, I have good news," Dr. Adeyemi told her at the follow-up appointment. "All your tests came back excellent. Your hormone levels are perfect, your ovarian reserve is healthy, and there are no issues that would prevent conception." Grace felt tears of relief. "So there's nothing wrong with me?" "Absolutely nothing. In fact, your fertility markers are quite impressive for your age. I would recommend having your husband tested as well. Male factor infertility is actually quite common and contributes to about 40% of conception difficulties." When Grace told Emeka about the test results that evening, his reaction shocked her. "So now you want to embarrass me by making me go for tests?" His voice was cold. "You want to tell people there's something wrong with me?" No, Emeka. The doctor just said we should both be tested to understand the full picture. I don't need to be tested. I'm fine. The problem is obviously with you, and these doctors are just trying to protect your feelings. But my tests came back normal. They said I'm perfectly healthy. Emeka's jaw tightened dangerously. Then maybe you need to see a different doctor. One who will actually find out what's wrong with you instead of giving you false hope. Grace watched her husband walk out of their bedroom, and for the first time, she felt truly afraid of what was happening to their marriage. Over the following months, Emeka became a different person. He started coming home late, sometimes smelling of perfume that wasn't Grace's. When she asked about his day, he would snap at her or ignore her completely. Their bedroom became a place of tension. Emeka would check his phone app and announce it was, "Tonight is your fertile window. Don't make any plans." There was no romance, no connection, just clinical attempts to conceive that left Grace feeling used and empty. Emeka, can we talk about us? Grace tried one Saturday morning while he was getting ready to go out. Talk about what? About how we barely communicate anymore. About how you treat me like I'm just a baby-making machine. He turned to face her, his expression hard. Maybe if you actually did your job as a wife and gave me a child, I wouldn't have to treat you like one. The cruelty in his voice made Grace's breath catch. Your job as a wife? Yes. What did you think marriage was about? I married you to build a family, not to have a roommate who can't even do the one thing women are supposed to do naturally. Grace felt something break inside her. I am more than just a womb, Emeka. Are you? Because from where I'm standing, you're a wife who can't give me children. That's all I see. He left the house, and Grace sat on their bedroom floor and cried harder than she'd ever cried in her life. Things got worse. Emeka stopped pretending to care about anything except getting her pregnant. He tracked her cycle obsessively, making demands about when they would try. He started making comments in front of his family about her inability to conceive, painting himself as the patient husband dealing with a defective wife. My brother's wife is already planning her third child's naming ceremony, Emeka's sister Linda said during one family gathering, looking at Grace. 3 children in 4 years, can you imagine? Some women are just more blessed, Mrs. Nwachukwu added pointedly. Grace wanted to scream that her doctor had said she was perfectly healthy, but Emeka had forbidden her from sharing that information. It will only make people ask more questions about me, he'd said. Better they think it's your problem. The breaking point came on a humid evening in July 2020. Grace was cooking jollof rice in their kitchen when Emeka walked in with a look she'd never seen before. We need to talk, he said flatly. Grace turned off the stove, her hands trembling. About what? I want a separation. I think we need time apart to figure out if this marriage is worth continuing. The words hit her like a physical blow. Emeka, what are you saying? I'm saying that I'm tired, Grace. I'm tired of trying. I'm tired of the disappointment every month. I'm tired of my family asking questions I can't answer. I'm tired of being married to someone who can't give me what I need. But the doctor said I'm healthy. We just need to be patient, maybe try IVF or... I don't want IVF. Emeka's voice rose. I don't want to spend millions of naira on treatments that might not even work. I want a natural family with someone whose body actually works properly. Grace felt tears streaming down her face. So you're leaving me because you think I'm broken? I'm leaving because this isn't working. You need to accept that. Where will I go? This is our home. Actually, this flat is in my name. I paid for everything. You have 2 months to find somewhere else to live. Grace stared at the man she'd married, the man who'd promised to love her in sickness and health. He looked at her with nothing but cold indifference. Is there someone else? The question came out as a whisper. Emeka's silence was enough. Who is she? That's not important right now. It's important to me. Who is she, Emeka? He sighed, annoyed. Her name is Adaeze. She works at my bank. And before you ask, nothing physical happened while we were together. We're just friends who understand each other, friends who understand each other. Grace felt like she was drowning. How long? Does it matter? Yes, it matters. How long have you been having an understanding with this woman? A few months. She's been someone I can talk to about what I'm going through. Someone who doesn't make me feel guilty for wanting a family. The accusation in his words was clear. Grace was making him feel guilty for wanting children, even though she'd spent 3 years desperately trying to give them to him. Emeka, please. We can work through this. We can see a marriage counselor. I don't want to work through this, Grace. I want out. The papers will be delivered next week. He walked out of the kitchen, and Grace heard the front door slam shut moments later. The divorce papers arrived on a Wednesday morning, delivered by a courier who looked uncomfortable handing them over. Grace's hands shook as she read through the document that would end her marriage. According to Emeka's lawyer, Grace was entitled to almost nothing. The flat was Emeka's property since he'd bought it before marriage. Their joint account would be split, but most of the money was from Emeka's salary. Even the car she drove was registered in his name. You're looking at maybe 500,000 naira and your personal belongings, her lawyer, Mrs. Adeleke, told her grimly during their consultation. Your husband's lawyer was very aggressive about the settlement. That won't even cover rent for a year in Lagos, Grace said, her voice hollow. I know. Do you have family you can stay with? Grace thought about going back to her parents' house in Benin City, admitting that her marriage had failed. The shame would be unbearable, but she had no other choice. What made everything worse was how Emeka had rewritten their story for everyone they knew. According to his version, Grace had become obsessed with getting pregnant to the point of instability. He told his family and friends that she'd refused to accept they might not be able to have children together, that she'd blamed him for their fertility problems, that she'd made his life miserable with her desperation. Grace found out about these lies when she ran into Emeka's sister at the market in Ikeja. Grace, how are you coping? Linda asked, her voice dripping with false sympathy. Emeka told us how difficult this has been for you emotionally. Difficult? Grace repeated numbly. Yes, with the depression and everything. He said you weren't coping well with the infertility issues. What depression? Linda, I'm not depressed. Linda looked at her with pity. Denial is part of the process, my dear. Emeka said you've been having trouble accepting reality. That's why he had to ask for the separation, for your own good. Grace stood frozen in the market, realization washing over her. Emeka hadn't just left her. He'd systematically destroyed her reputation, painting her as mentally unstable to justify his abandonment. When Grace called Emeka that evening to confront him, he was unapologetic. I had to tell them something, he said casually. My family was asking too many questions about why our marriage ended. I couldn't tell them the truth, could I? What truth, Emeka? That you abandoned your wife because she couldn't get pregnant fast enough for you. I told them you became obsessed and unstable, which isn't far from the truth if you think about it. You did become obsessed with getting pregnant, because you made me obsessed. You tracked my every cycle, you made me feel worthless every month when my period came, you told me my only value was as a mother. I needed my family to understand why I was leaving. This was the kindest way to do it. Kindest? Grace's voice rose. You made me sound like I had a mental breakdown. Grace, what did you expect me to say? That I fell out of love with my infertile wife. That would make me look like the bad guy. You are the bad guy, Emeka. He hung up on her. 2 weeks before she was supposed to vacate the flat, Grace received an unexpected phone call from Emeka. I wanted to give you advance notice about something, he said, his voice artificially polite. Adayeze is pregnant, and we're having a baby shower next month. The world seemed to tilt. Pregnant? Already? Yes, we're very blessed. It happened naturally, no problems at all. The emphasis on no problems at all was clearly meant to hurt her. Why are you telling me this, Emeka? Because Adayeze thought it would be good to invite you, to show there are no hard feelings. Grace couldn't speak for several seconds. You want me to come to your baby shower? Yes. I think it would be good for you, actually. Help you move on and accept that I'm happy now. You're unbelievable. Grace, this could be healing for you. My family will be there, all our old friends. You can show everyone you're doing okay, that you're not bitter about how things ended. Show everyone. That's what this was really about. Emeka wanted her there as proof that his version of their story was true, that she'd accepted the end of their marriage because she'd been unstable anyway. I don't think. The invitation will be delivered to you tomorrow. I really hope you'll come. It would mean a lot to Adayeze and me. After he hung up, Grace sat in the empty flat that would soon no longer be hers, holding her phone and trying to process what had just happened. Emeka wanted her at his baby shower. He wanted to parade her in front of everyone as the broken ex-wife who couldn't give him children, while his new partner glowed with the pregnancy Grace had failed to provide. The invitation arrived the next day, an elegant card with silver lettering. You're invited to celebrate baby Nwachukwu. Join Emeka and Adayeze as they prepare to welcome their little blessing. Their little blessing. Grace stared at those words until they blurred. That evening, she called her older sister Angela, who lived in Abuja. He did what? Angela's voice was sharp with anger after Grace explained everything. He wants me at his baby shower, sister. He wants everyone to see me looking pathetic while he celebrates his new family. That man is wicked, pure evil. Don't go to that nonsense baby shower. I don't know what to do anymore. I feel so lost. Come to Abuja, Angela said firmly. Leave Lagos and that terrible man behind. Come stay with me and Chidi for a while. You need to get away from all of this. Grace looked around the flat that had been her home for 3 years. She had nothing left in Lagos except pain and humiliation. Okay, she whispered. I'll come. Moving to Abuja felt like being reborn. Angela and her husband Chidi welcomed Grace into their home in Maitama with open arms and no judgment. What that man did to you was abuse, Angela told her sister one evening as they sat on the veranda. You know that, right? Everything Emeka did was emotional abuse. I keep thinking maybe I was obsessed like he said. Maybe I did make everything about getting pregnant. Because he made it about getting pregnant. He's the one who tracked your cycles, made you feel worthless, then blamed you for being focused on the very thing he demanded from you. Angela arranged for Grace to see a therapist, Dr. Okonkwo, who specialized in trauma from emotional abuse. What you experienced is called gaslighting, Dr. Okonkwo explained during their second session. Your ex-husband systematically made you doubt your own reality, made you believe you were the problem, made you feel crazy for having normal reactions to his abuse. But what if there really was something wrong with me? What if I really couldn't have children? Let me ask you something, Grace. Did you ever follow up with Dr. Adeyemi at Nordica after your husband asked for divorce? Grace shook her head. I was too devastated to think about it. I think you should. I think you need to know the truth about your body, separate from anything your ex-husband told you. The next week, Grace went back to see Dr. Adeyemi in Lagos. Ms. Okafor now, Dr. Adeyemi corrected herself. It's good to see you. How can I help? I need to know the truth, doctor. Can I have children or not? Dr. Adeyemi pulled up Grace's records on her computer. According to all your test results from 2 years ago, absolutely yes. Your fertility markers were excellent. Were? What about now? Let's run updated tests to be sure, but I don't expect anything has changed. 2 weeks later, Grace sat in Dr. Adeyemi's office, holding a folder with her new test results. Miss Okafor, your fertility is perfect. In fact, your ovarian reserve is exceptional for a woman your age. You should have no trouble conceiving naturally when you're ready. Grace felt tears streaming down her face. Then why couldn't I get pregnant with my husband? Dr. Adeyemi hesitated. May I speak frankly? Please. Sometimes, when a couple struggles to conceive, despite one partner having perfect fertility, there can be male factor issues that aren't being addressed. Or, she paused, or what? Or there can be deliberate interference. I've seen cases where one partner secretly sabotages conception while letting the other believe they're trying. Grace's blood ran cold. You think Emeka was preventing me from getting pregnant on purpose? I can't say for certain. But I can tell you that with your fertility levels, you should have conceived within the first year of trying under normal circumstances. Grace left the clinic in a daze. Emeka had let her believe for 3 years that she was broken, that her body didn't work properly, that she was defective. He'd watched her cry every month, watched her blame herself, watched her become desperate and depressed. and all along, there had been nothing wrong with her. Armed with the truth about her fertility, Grace began to rebuild her life with determination. She enrolled in business school at Abuja Business School, using her divorce settlement to invest in her education. "I spent 3 years trying to be Emeka's perfect wife," she told Angela. "Now I'm going to figure out who I am without him." Grace had always been talented at graphic design, and in business school, she learned how to turn that talent into a company. She started Flourish Designs, a branding agency that specialized in helping small Nigerian businesses create professional marketing materials. The business took off faster than she'd imagined. Within 6 months, Grace had 10 steady clients. Within a year, she'd hired 2 employees and moved into a small office space in Woos. "I'm proud of you," Angela told her one evening. "Look at everything you've built." Grace smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "I just wish I hadn't wasted 3 years believing Emeka's lies about who I was." "You didn't waste those years. You survived them, and now you're thriving." Through business networking events, Grace met James Adeleke, a software developer who'd built a successful tech startup. He was quiet where Emeka had been loud, thoughtful where Emeka had been impulsive, and most importantly, he saw Grace as a complete person rather than just a potential mother. "Tell me about your business," James said during their first coffee meeting at Jabi Lake Mall. Not "tell me about your family plans" or "do you want children someday?" He wanted to know about her work, her dreams, her ambitions. Grace found herself relaxing in a way she hadn't with a man in years. They dated for 6 months before Grace told him about her marriage to Emeka. "He convinced me I was broken," she said quietly, stirring her drink. "He made me believe my body didn't work, that I was defective, that I was worthless because I couldn't get pregnant." James reached across the table and took her hand, but none of that was true. "No, the doctors confirmed I'm perfectly healthy. I think Emeka was sabotaging our chances while letting me believe it was my fault." "That's not just cruel, Grace. That's evil. That's deliberate psychological torture." James's anger on her behalf made her feel validated in a way she'd never experienced with Emeka. "He tried to destroy who I was," she continued, "but somehow I'm still here." "You're more than still here. You're extraordinary. You built a successful business from nothing. You survived abuse and came out stronger. You're one of the most resilient people I've ever met." When James proposed a year later, he did it at her office, surrounded by the business she'd built with her own hands. "I don't want to be with you because of what you can give me," he said on one knee. "I want to be with you because of who you are. Your strength, your creativity, your kindness, despite everything you've been through. Will you marry me?" Grace said yes, crying happy tears for the first time in years. Their wedding in June 2023 was intimate and joyful. Grace wore a beautiful purple aso-ebi, and James looked at her like she hung the moon. "I promise to love you for exactly who you are," James said during his vows. "I promise to never make you feel less than the amazing woman you are. I promise to be your partner in building whatever life we choose together." 2 months after their wedding, Grace discovered she was pregnant. "Already?" Angela squealed when Grace told her. "That was fast." "Dr. Adeyemi said it would be fast. She said my fertility was excellent. How do you feel?" Grace put her hand on her still flat stomach. "I feel vindicated. I feel like this baby is proof that I was never broken, that everything Emeka said about me was a lie." At her first ultrasound, the technician frowned at the screen. "Is something wrong?" Grace asked, her heart racing. No. Everything's fine. Actually, I'm seeing 2 heartbeats. Ms. Okafor, you're having twins." Grace and James stared at each other in shock before both breaking into huge smiles. "Twins," James whispered. "We're having twins." The pregnancy was smooth and healthy. Grace's body, which Emeka had convinced her was defective, performed exactly as it should. At 20 weeks, they learned they were having a boy and a girl. "A complete set," James joked, his hand on Grace's growing belly. "One perfect baby boy and one perfect baby girl from one perfect wife." During this time, Grace focused entirely on her growing family and business. She'd heard through mutual acquaintances that Emeka and Adeyeze had gotten married, that Adeyeze had given birth to a baby boy. but that part of her life felt distant, irrelevant to the happiness she'd found. Then, when Grace was 8 months pregnant with her twins, she received an unexpected message on WhatsApp. It was from someone named Ifeoma, who identified herself as Adaeze's younger sister. "I know you don't know me, but I need to tell you something important. It's about Emeka and what he's been hiding." Grace's first instinct was to delete the message. She didn't want drama from her past intruding on her present happiness. But something made her respond. "What is it? Can we meet? This isn't something I can explain over text." They agreed to meet at a quiet cafe in Wuze the following Saturday. Ifeoma was a thin young woman in her mid-20s, wearing jeans and a worried expression. "Thank you for meeting me," Ifeoma said, fidgeting with her phone. "I've been struggling with whether to reach out, but I feel like you deserve to know the truth." "What truth?" Ifeoma took a deep breath. "Emeka is infertile. He's been infertile this whole time. That baby he and my sister have isn't his biological child." Grace felt the world tilt. "What are you saying?" "My sister was having an affair with her ex-boyfriend when she got pregnant. The baby is not Emeka's. But Emeka doesn't know that, and my sister has been lying to him since the beginning." "How do you know this?" "Because my sister told me. She was crying one night, scared about what would happen if Emeka ever found out. She said she knew Emeka was infertile because he'd had medical tests done that showed he had severe fertility issues. But he's been lying to everyone, including her, pretending everything was fine." Grace sat back in her chair, processing this information. "So Emeka knew he was infertile when he was married to me? When he was telling me I was the problem?" "Yes. And now he's going around boasting about his son, talking about his virility, acting like he's some kind of super father. Meanwhile, my sister is terrified that he'll eventually demand a DNA test and discover the truth." "Why are you telling me this?" Ifeoma's eyes filled with tears. "Because I heard what Emeka did to you. How he made you believe you couldn't have children, how he destroyed your reputation, how he blamed you for everything, and now you're about to have twins with your new husband. And Emeka is planning another baby shower. Another baby shower. For my sister's second pregnancy. She's pregnant again, and before you ask, yes, it's by the same ex-boyfriend. Emeka still doesn't know." Ifeoma pulled out her phone and showed Grace a baby shower invitation. "They're having it in Lagos next month at Emeka's mother's house in Surulere. My sister insisted on inviting you. She said something about wanting to show there were no hard feelings. But I think Emeka pushed her to do it. He wants to parade his new family in front of you." Grace stared at the invitation. After everything she'd learned, after all the pain and healing, Emeka wanted to drag her back into his toxic world one more time. "I don't know why I'm telling you all this," Ifeoma continued. "Maybe because you deserve to know the truth. Maybe because I'm tired of watching my sister lie. Maybe because Emeka deserves to be exposed for what he did to you." After Ifeoma left, Grace sat in the cafe for a long time, her hands on her pregnant belly where her twins were moving. Emeka had destroyed her life based on a lie. He'd made her believe she was infertile while knowing he was the one with fertility problems. He'd abandoned her, humiliated her, and rewritten their history to make himself the victim. And now he wanted her at another baby shower, expecting her to show up broken and pathetic so he could feel superior one more time. But Grace wasn't that woman anymore. Grace went home and told James everything Ifeoma had revealed. "That man is a monster," James said, his voice tight with anger. "He knew he was infertile and let you torture yourself for 3 years. He didn't just let me torture myself. He actively made it worse. He blamed me, made me feel defective, convinced everyone I was the problem. What do you want to do?" Grace looked down at her pregnant belly. "I want to go to that baby shower." "Are you sure? You're 8 months pregnant with twins. You should be resting, not dealing with that nonsense." "I'm sure. Emeka invited me expecting to see his broken ex-wife. Instead, he's going to see exactly what he threw away. And he's going to learn some truths he's been hiding from." James studied his wife's face. "You're planning something." "I'm planning to show Emeka who I really am. And maybe give him some information he should have." "What kind of information?" Grace told him about Adaeze's infidelity, about the baby that wasn't Emeka's. About all the lies built on top of lies. So Emeka's been living a lie this whole time, James said slowly, pretending he has a son when the child isn't even his biological son. Yes, and now they're having a baby shower for a second child that also isn't his. Karma really is something. Over the next few weeks, Grace prepared for the baby shower like she was preparing for battle. She hired a professional makeup artist, bought a stunning emerald green Ankara dress that perfectly showcased her pregnant belly, and arranged for professional photos to be taken with her and James together. "You look like a queen," Angela said when she saw Grace's outfit the day before the baby shower. "I feel like one," Grace replied. "I survived Emeka. I built a business. I found real love. I'm about to have 2 healthy babies. I'm not the broken woman he tried to make me believe I was. Are you sure you want to go? You could just send him those documents from Dr. Adeyemi showing you were never infertile. Make your point without having to see him." "No, I need to see his face. I need him to look at me thriving and realize he gave up something precious because of his own lies." The baby shower was on a Saturday afternoon. Grace and James drove from Abuja to Lagos, arriving at the Nwachukwu family house in Surulere just after the party had started. The house was decorated with pink and blue balloons, and the yard was full of guests. Grace recognized many of them. Emeka's family members, old mutual friends, the same people who'd believed his lies about her. She took a deep breath, her hand on her belly where her twins were moving. "Ready?" James asked, squeezing her other hand. "Ready." They walked into the party together, and the reaction was immediate. Conversations stopped, heads turned, people stared. Grace Adelek, the woman Emeka had described as broken and infertile, was standing in their midst, 8 months pregnant with twins, glowing with health and happiness, her handsome husband by her side. Emeka was standing near the drinks table when he saw her. His face went completely white, and the bottle of malt he was holding slipped from his fingers and shattered on the ground. "Grace?" His voice came out as a croak. Everyone in the yard turned to stare. Adayeze, heavily pregnant with her second child, looked confused and alarmed. "Hello, Emeka," Grace said calmly. "Thank you for the invitation. I thought it would be good to show you how well I'm doing." Mrs. Nwachukwu approached first, her eyes wide. "Grace, is that really you? Are you pregnant?" "Yes, Ma. 8 months pregnant with twins, a boy and a girl." "Twins?" The older woman's voice was faint. But Emeka said you couldn't have children. He said that's why your marriage ended." "Did he?" Grace looked directly at Emeka. "That's interesting, because my doctors always told me I was perfectly fertile. In fact, my doctor said my fertility markers were exceptional." Linda, Emeka's sister, stepped forward. "But you tried for 3 years and couldn't get pregnant. How do you explain that?" "I've been wondering about that myself," Grace said. "Especially since I got pregnant just 2 months after marrying my new husband. It makes you think, doesn't it? If I was so infertile, how did I conceive twins so easily?" She could see understanding dawning on several faces in the crowd. Emeka found his voice, though it shook. "Who is this man? Your new husband?" "This is James Adeleke. He's a software entrepreneur, and more importantly, he's a good man who's never made me feel less than I am." James wrapped his arm around Grace protectively, his presence calm and strong beside her. "Grace, what are you doing here?" Adayez asked, her voice high with anxiety. She clutched her pregnant belly, looking between Grace and Emeka with growing panic. "I was invited, remember? You wanted to show there were no hard feelings, so here I am, showing everyone exactly how I'm feeling these days." Grace smiled. "I'm feeling blessed. I'm feeling vindicated. I'm feeling like the truth is finally coming to light." "What truth?" Emeka's voice was tight with barely controlled panic. "The truth about fertility, Emeka. About who could have children and who couldn't." Mrs. Nwachukwu looked confused. "I don't understand what's happening." Grace reached into her designer handbag and pulled out a folder. "I brought some documents I thought people might find interesting. My medical records from Nordica Fertility Center." "Grace, don't." Emeka started forward, but James stepped slightly in front of his wife. Let her speak, James said quietly, but there was steel in his voice. These are my test results from when Emeka and I were married, Grace continued, opening the folder, and these are updated results from last year. Both sets of tests show the same thing: perfect fertility, healthy hormone levels, excellent ovarian reserve. According to Dr. Adeyemi, I should have been able to conceive naturally within the first year of trying. She looked around at the shocked faces. So the question becomes, if I was so fertile, why couldn't I get pregnant during my 3 years of marriage to Emeka? Maybe your new husband's fertility is better, Linda suggested weakly. Maybe, Grace agreed, or maybe the problem was never with me at all. Emeka's face had turned a grayish color. Stop this, Grace. This is inappropriate. Inappropriate? What's inappropriate is letting your wife believe for 3 years that she's defective when you knew the truth all along. What truth? Ms. Nwachukwu demanded. Emeka, what is she talking about? Before Emeka could answer, Grace continued, Emeka had fertility testing done too, didn't you? At Lagos University Teaching Hospital. Would you like to share those results with everyone? How do you know about that? Emeka's voice was barely a whisper. Because I requested copies of all medical records from our marriage. Imagine my surprise when I discovered you'd been tested and the results showed severe male factor infertility. Low sperm count, poor motility. The doctor said natural conception would be extremely difficult, possibly impossible. Gasps rippled through the crowd. You knew, Grace said, her voice breaking slightly despite her resolve to stay strong. You knew you were the one with fertility problems, and you let me believe it was my fault. You watched me cry every month. You watched me inject myself with hormones. You let me think my body was broken. That's a lie, Emeka shouted, but his voice lacked conviction. Is it? Then show everyone your medical records. Prove me wrong. Emeka stood frozen, unable to speak. Mrs. Nwachukwu turned to her son, her face a mixture of horror and dawning understanding. Emeka, is this true? Do you have fertility problems? Emeka's voice failed him. Because if you do, Grace continued gently, then there's something else everyone should know. She turned to look at Adeyeze, who had gone pale. Adeyeze, how long have you been with Emeka? When did your first child... When did little Chidi arrive? What does that have to do with anything? Adeyeze's voice was shrill. Just answer the question. We got together right after his divorce was final. Chidi was born 9 months later. 9 months, and you conceived naturally, no fertility treatments, no problems at all. Yes, Emeka is very virile, not like... Adeyeze stopped herself, but the damage was done. Not like with his first wife, you mean? Grace finished. Except we've just established that I'm very fertile. So if Emeka has severe fertility problems, and you got pregnant so easily, doesn't that seem strange to anyone else? The silence in the yard was deafening. What are you suggesting? Mrs. Nwachukwu asked slowly. I'm not suggesting anything. I'm just pointing out that the math doesn't add up. A man with documented severe fertility issues somehow fathers 2 children in quick succession. Grace shrugged. It's almost miraculous. Adeyeze's face had gone from pale to bright red. Are you calling me a liar? Are you saying my children aren't Emeka's? I'm saying that biology doesn't lie, medical records don't lie, and maybe it's time everyone stopped pretending and started asking real questions. Emeka's brother Michael stepped forward, his face serious. Emeka, is it true you have fertility problems? It was just one test. It could have been wrong. So you did have fertility problems, Michael said flatly. You lied to all of us. You let us blame Grace, let us think she was the one who couldn't have children, and all along it was you. It's not that simple. Emeka's voice rose desperately. The stress of the marriage could have affected my results. With Adeyeze, everything was different. I was happier, more relaxed. That's why nothing. Mrs. Nwachukwu's voice cut through like a knife. Stress doesn't change a medical diagnosis that severe. Emeka, those children. She turned to look at Adeyeze. Are they really my son's children? Adeyeze looked like a trapped animal. Of course they are. How dare you question? Then you won't mind a DNA test, Grace said quietly. The words hung in the air like a bomb. A DNA test. Adaeze's voice came out as a squeak. Yes. If little Chidi is really Emeka's son, a DNA test will prove it. Same with the baby you're carrying now. Simple biology. This is ridiculous. Adaeze looked around wildly. I don't have to prove anything to anyone. Emeka, tell them. Tell them these are your children. But Emeka was staring at Adaeze with an expression of dawning horror. Adaeze, are they my children? Of course they are. Then why do you look so scared about a DNA test? Because this is humiliating. Your ex-wife shows up pregnant, trying to ruin our lives, making crazy accusations. They're not crazy accusations if they're true, Michael said. Adaeze, if those children are Emeka's, just agree to the test. It will shut everyone up and prove Grace wrong. Adaeze's eyes darted around the yard, looking for escape. I don't need to prove anything. Emeka knows those children are his. Does he? Grace asked softly. Because here's what I think happened. I think Emeka knew he was infertile when he was married to me. I think he was sabotaging our chances of conceiving while blaming me for our failures. And I think when he met you, Adaeze, he told you the same lies. But you were already pregnant with someone else's child, weren't you? That's insane, is it? Then explain how a man with severe fertility problems suddenly has 2 children in rapid succession. Explain how a woman who's been with an infertile man gets pregnant so easily. The only explanation is that those children have a different biological father. Ifeoma, who had been standing quietly at the edge of the crowd, stepped forward. Her voice was quiet but clear. Sister, just tell them the truth. Everyone turned to stare at the young woman. Ifeoma, shut up, Adaeze hissed. I can't stay quiet anymore. These people deserve to know. Ifeoma looked at Emeka with pity. The children aren't yours. Adaeze was having an affair with her ex-boyfriend Kunle when she got pregnant the first time. And she's pregnant by him again now. The explosion of voices was immediate. People shouting questions, exclaiming in shock, demanding answers. Adaeze stood frozen, tears streaming down her face. Ifeoma, how could you? How could I? How could you, sister? This man destroyed his first wife over fertility issues that were his own fault. And then you let him believe he fathered your children when you knew the truth. Emeka looked like he'd been hit by a truck. Kunle? Your ex-boyfriend Kunle? You told me you hadn't seen him in years. Emeka, I can explain. How long? His voice was hollow. How long have you been seeing him? Adaeze's silence was answer enough. Mrs. Nwachukwu made a sound like a wounded animal. So I don't have grandchildren. Little Chidi isn't my grandson. Ma, I'm sorry, Adaeze whispered. I never meant for it to go this far. I was already pregnant when Emeka and I got serious. I panicked. I knew he wanted children, and I thought if I told him the baby was his, everything would work out. Work out? Emeka's voice rose. You let me believe I was a father. You let me bond with that child. You let me name him after my father. I know. I'm sorry. And the second child? Were you ever going to tell me the truth? Adaeze just cried harder. Emeka turned to Grace, his face a mask of devastation. Did you know about this before today? Ifeoma told me a month ago. She thought I deserved to know the truth about what you did to me. And she was right. So you came here to expose us? To humiliate me? Grace looked at the man who had destroyed her life, who had made her believe she was worthless, who had stolen 3 years of her life with his lies. She felt something shift inside her, not satisfaction at his pain, but a deep sense of closure. No, Emeka. I came here to show you what you lost. Pshabisas. I came here to prove that I was never the broken one. I came here to set the record straight for everyone who believed your lies about me. She placed her hand on her pregnant belly. I came here to show you that I'm not only capable of having children, I'm having 2 of them at once. And they're being raised in a home full of love and honesty, things you don't understand. She looked around at the shocked faces of Emeka's family and friends. For 3 years, I believed I was defective because this man told me I was. He tracked my cycles, controlled my body, blamed me for our inability to conceive, all while hiding the fact that he was the one with fertility problems. He made me feel worthless, then left me for someone he thought could give him what I supposedly couldn't. Mrs. Nwachukwu was crying now. Grace, we didn't know. If we had known the truth, I'm not telling you this for an apology, Grace said gently. I'm telling you this because every woman deserves to be believed about her own body. Every woman deserves to know the truth. And every woman deserves a partner who doesn't use her perceived failures to justify his own cruelty. She turned back to Emeka one last time. You thought you were ending my life when you divorced me. You thought I would never recover, never be happy, never have the family I wanted. You even invited me here today, thinking you'd get to parade your success in front of my failure. Grace smiled, and it was genuine. But here's what you didn't understand, Emeka. You weren't my blessing. You were my lesson. You taught me that I'm strong enough to survive betrayal. You taught me that my value isn't determined by what I can give a man. You taught me that sometimes the worst thing that happens to you is actually the universe pushing you towards something better. She gestured to James and her pregnant belly. This is my better. A man who loves me for who I am, not what I can produce. Children who will grow up knowing their mother is strong and worthy. A life built on truth instead of lies. And you, she looked at Emeka with something close to pity. You spent so much energy trying to destroy me that you destroyed yourself instead. You built your new life on the same lies you used to end our marriage, and now those lies have caught up with you. Emeka opened his mouth, but no words came out. Grace took James's hand. We should go. I've said what I came to say. As they walked toward the gate, Mrs. Nwachukwu called out, Grace, wait. Grace turned back. The older woman approached, tears streaming down her face. I'm so sorry for how we treated you, for believing Emeka's lies, for making you feel like you weren't good enough for our family. Mrs. Nwachukwu, you only knew what Emeka told you. I don't blame you. Will you? Will you let us know when your twins are born? Not to be involved, she added quickly. Just so we can, I don't know, acknowledge them, acknowledge that we were wrong about you. Grace thought about it for a moment. Maybe. If only to show my children that truth always wins eventually, no matter how long it takes. She and James left the baby shower behind, walking back to their car as the sun set over Lagos. How do you feel? James asked as they drove away. Free, Grace said simply. For the first time in years, I feel completely free. Grace watched her twins play in their Abuja garden. Her business thrived, but her children's laughter meant everything. A message arrived. Emeka and Adeize divorced. He's alone. Grace smiled, feeling free. She'd rebuilt her life, found real love, and proved every lie wrong. Grace Adelake was finally whole, worthy, and beautifully free. If you've ever been told you're not enough, if you've ever been made to feel broken by someone else's lies, remember this. Their words say everything about them and nothing about you. Your worth is inherent, not earned. Your value is constant, not conditional. And sometimes the person who tries to destroy you is actually showing you exactly how strong you really are. Have you ever been blamed for something that wasn't your fault? Have you ever been made to feel broken by someone who was hiding their own truth? Drop your answer in the comments below. If this story reminded you that karma is real and truth always comes out, hit that like button right now. Share this with someone who needs to hear that their worth isn't defined by someone else's lies. And if you want more stories about people who turned betrayal into their biggest comeback, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you never miss when we drop the next one. See you in the next story.